Today, on episode 80 of Rail Talk, we break major news in the fight against decoupling in Florida. Who said this isn't a journalistic endeavor? I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. And yeah, John, I'm excited to learn more about this initiative and, how we can not only fight these kind of marginalization efforts in Florida, but all throughout the country as well. We need some damn unification. I'm excited to learn more.
Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. And Joe, if I would have told you 5-10 years ago that people would be and organizations would be lining up to get into an organization, an initiative that I was involved in, if not, on the board of, you'd say I was crazy. Well, guess what? It's crazy town, and we're all along for this ride.
Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade Farm. TaylorMade does it all, from sales to stallions to boarding to partnerships. And when you're with them, your family. They're just top of the line in everything they do. Looking at the website right now, panning over their beautiful farm. It's an incredible, incredible family-run organization full of people who are dedicated to the business, dedicated to the horses, and dedicated to you as clients. Those yearling deadlines are coming up. Like if you want to figure out which yearling sale to put your horse in, there's a bunch of big ones this summer and fall. TaylorMade has the expertise over decades in the business to figure out where to best showcase your horse. He's doing it for John Green and DJ Stable as we speak right now. Obviously, the Stallion barn has a rocket ship success, especially with Not This Time. We mentioned it earlier, Magnitude, another great example of a top class Not This Time 3-year-old. He'll be on the sidelines for a little bit, but I'm sure when he comes back, he's going to be a big time player in that 3-year-old
and fresh
division.
And he'll be fresh for all those summer races.
Yeah, no, we got a Not This Time down at Doc Iseman's in Ocala that we really like, and a couple of Tacitus's that I mentioned. Instagram filly who's really come around. So that Stallion roster, I say it every week, but get in now because those prices are going to go up. And that's the TaylorMade Stallion roster is a great sound investment. It's a sound investment you can get in the Stallion game. Check them out at TaylorMadeFarm.com or TaylorMadeStallions.com. So we're so thrilled to bring these next guests to the Rail Talk studio, here to break some major news. Appreciate you guys coming on this platform to do it. The esteemed former state senator of Kentucky, Damon Thayer, and the general manager of Ocala stud, David O'Farrell. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be on.
Great to have you. So the breaking news is that you guys, in conjunction with John Green, have started the Thoroughbred Racing Initiative. This is a huge deal because you guys are going to fight in an organized way against the decoupling bill in Florida, and then hopefully eventually we'll broaden it out to take on some more of the fights that racing is facing in an existential way. Damon, I'll start with you. How did this come about, and then what is the short-term focus of this new initiative?
Well, when the news came out about the decoupling bill a few weeks ago, Eric Hamelbeck, who's the president of the National HBPA, reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to write an op-ed because the situation in Florida right now is very similar to what happened in Kentucky in the fall of 2020, when after 10 years of positive Supreme Court and district court decisions about historical horse racing, our Supreme Court in Kentucky flipped its position and said that HHR required an act of the legislature to make it legal. So we were really in a crisis mode and had to get everybody together on the same page in a very short period of time to try to pass a bill. This is a similar situation where we have to get everybody together in a short period of time to try to kill a bill. So I wrote the op-ed, and Mark Cassie reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to get on a call with John and David and Dr. Barry Eisman and talk about being involved in a Florida initiative to, in the short term, attempt to defeat the decoupling bill, and in the long term, help be a convening authority to figure out a way forward for Florida racing and its really important breeding industry. And so David and John and the guys formed the Thoroughbred Racing Initiative, and we're here breaking the news on your podcast today.
Yeah, and I guess one of the important things, Damon, aside from taking on, some of the powers that be in Tallahassee, is just to remind everybody, and David, I'm going to ask you this, remind everybody, the importance of the fact that it's a new organization, it's a new initiative, but we're not looking to replace anybody. As a matter of fact, David, you've actually spoken to a lot of groups and organizations in Florida because this impacts Florida first and then globally the industry. What feedback are you getting from some of the powers that be and some of these other organizations that are now joining forces with us?
It's all positive. It's been good. We're just trying to bolster our efforts and band together and bring as many resources to the table as we can to try to combat this bill. This bill is obviously seriously impactful for the future of Florida, but it also has national consequences as well. So, we feel like we can bring something to the table, and we can help the efforts that have already been established. And we're ready to put up the good fight.
What does that fight look like organizationally, structurally? Like what you got boots on the ground. You mentioned that you were in Tallahassee. What does that look like right now?
Yeah, so I'm here with OBS representatives. We came last night and we met with Senate President Ben Albritton. There was about 15 OBS directors, employees, executives that filled the room, and we were granted 30 minutes of his time, and we took about an hour and 20 minutes of it that he spent with us, which was really nice. I think we got our message across. We were able to tell our story, and it was very productive. And we met with 4 other state senators this morning. So between OBS and the FTBOA and the new TRI, Thoroughbred Racing Initiative, we're going to all try to row in the same direction and try to beat this bill.
And Damon, what are you seeing from Kentucky as far as the interest from some of the farms and some of the organizations that are outside of Florida? You and I are technically outsiders because we don't live in Florida, but we both have spoken about the importance of decoupling and beating this bill. When you talk to people in Kentucky, what are the effects that they're seeing?
Well, everybody in Kentucky is very focused on this because Florida is incredibly important to not only the national racing and breeding ecosystem, but it's of critical importance to Kentucky. We've got dozens of Kentucky trainers in Florida right now for the winter, either at Gulfstream Park or one of the training centers or at Tampa. A lot of our horses get broken at training centers in Marion County. So it's not only the $3.25 billion economic impact the horse industry has on Florida and the 33,500 jobs that it has in Florida, but it has really what we hope is an unbreakable chain on the effect on what's happening here in Kentucky. I mean, Florida is one of the most important racing and breeding states. I think it's 20% of the handle, 10% of the national race days, and it's of critical importance. So look, I'm a racing fan at heart. I was fortunate that for 22 years in the Kentucky State Senate, 12 as Senate Majority Floor Leader, I was in a position to help my adopted home state solidify its position in the national ecosystem. But I'm a racing fan first. I want racing to survive and thrive everywhere. I mean, I counted it up this weekend. I made my first visit to the fairgrounds ever. I'll be in Tampa next week to go to Tampa Bay Downs. I've been to something like 70 racetracks across the world, and wow. I want racing to thrive everywhere. As a fan, I'm also an owner. I'm involved with CJ Thoroughbreds. We've got a couple horses in Florida right now with Dale Romans. We've got a nice filly making her first start this weekend with Brendan Walsh. Her name is Dance to Remember. I got to name her because I'm a fan of the Eagles, and that's a line from my favorite song, Hotel California.
Yep.
So, we're invested in Florida racing too. Our partnership as an owner, we've got our nice 3-year-old Keep It Easy pointing for the Fountain of Youth, and it's as a racing fan, we need Florida to not just survive but thrive.
Right. And David, as far as what you're seeing, I mean, you're in Tallahassee, you're meeting with elected officials. We've spoken to other groups in the industry. I've been shocked and amazed at how much of a rallying cry this issue has been for various groups. What are you most surprised about as far as the groups that are either lining up to work with us or that you've had audiences with so far?
Well, I think everybody understands what's at stake here. Florida is hugely important to the racing ecosystem nationwide, as Damon illustrated a minute ago. We're in a position where at a very good a very good place in Ocala, Marion County. We have all the infrastructure. We have the great weather. The winter circuits thrive in South Florida due to the weather. And it's something that's hugely important for us going forward.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you guys are obviously advocates for racing as a whole. Florida is the current fight, and that's the 5-alarm fire right now that we have to put out. But there's other fires, around the country, and there's other existential crises. Like we look at the situation that Santa Anita's in, and same ownership as Gulfstream Park, same kind of sword of Damocles hanging over their head, and whether or not they're going to still be racing 3 or 4 years from now. Understanding that you guys have to focus your resources on this current fight in Florida, Damon, can you just tell the audience if there's a plan to broaden this out and start to combat these issues across the country?
Well, that's a great question, and the short answer is yes. That's why David and John and the guys decided to name it Thoroughbred Racing Initiative. Our first fight is in Florida, but we want to be able to expand this in other places if necessary. We want to be a convening authority, a collaborative effort to bring all the parties together to seek success in racing states. And here's the bottom line, Joe, over the next 5 to 10 years. The states where the racing and breeding industry have a good relationship with their state legislators are the places where racing is going to survive and thrive. And if you look around, you can, and I'll probably leave somebody out, but Kentucky, obviously, Maryland, the state is investing huge there in building a new Pimlico and a new training center. New York, obviously, $500 million to build the new Belmont Park. Arkansas, Virginia, Indiana, and we hope Florida. And to be fair, in Florida, the legislature has been very supportive over the last several years, with the FTBOA and our mutual friend Lonnie Powell leading the way. Florida has had a number of wins for the thoroughbred side of the business. So we just want to continue that because it's important that we have that strong relationship in Tallahassee. David is there today, met with legislators yesterday, is going to meet with more today. The states where the industry has a good relationship with legislators is where racing is going to survive and thrive. Right now, that doesn't seem to be the case in California, but I'm a believer in it's never too late. And I have the blueprint for this in Kentucky.
Exactly.
And during my last 3 years in the Kentucky General Assembly, we passed 5 bills to help stabilize and improve the racing and breeding industry in Kentucky. I mean, you can only make a legal sports bet at a racetrack in Kentucky. I mean, obviously, we've got online. You can bet on your phone. But the only place where you can make a brick and mortar sports bet in Kentucky is at a racetrack or an OTB. Mm-hmm. So, that's just another example. We had a huge win in 2021 where we formalized the legalization of historical horse racing machines. And then we came back a year later after a year's worth of hearings on, and we passed a flat tax for horse racing bets in Kentucky. And you all know the results. I mean, we're running $85,000 maiden races at Turfway right now. Mm-hmm. They're going to be $110,000 at Keeneland, $120,000 at Churchill Downs. So I believe this model can be picked up, laid down in other state capitals, and achieve success. Luckily, in Florida, because of the efforts of OBS and the FTBOA and the Tampa HPPA, there is a good relationship between the industry and legislators. Just the fact that David's there having these meetings shows that they're willing to listen to what we have to say. And that was the case in Kentucky, but everybody has to come together. And we did that in Kentucky. Horsemen, owners, trainers, breeders, tracks, because the easiest thing for a legislator to do is to say no.
Right.
Especially if an industry is divided and has different messages, because legislators are hit with hundreds of messages every day. And the easiest thing to do is to say, no, I don't have time to deal with this. Believe me, I did it for 22 years. And right now I'm really optimistic about our chances of killing this bill in the Senate because of the unanimity the industry is showing. Like John said, this started less than 2 weeks ago. I was in Austin, Texas. I'm working with a similar coalition down there. I got off the plane. I got a call from Mark Cassie. He said, "Hey, I read your op-ed. Can you help us in Florida?" And I said, "Hey, put me in, coach."
Right. Yep. And David, we've gotten a great groundswell of support so far. If people want to either throw their efforts in or make a donation or contribution, we'll put the graphics up on the screen. But what's the best way for people at home or or other organizations that want to get in line with us? What's the best way for them to get in touch with us?
The best way to get in touch would be either to reach out to myself or Damon or Mark or Barry or yourself. And also, this is like everything else. It takes money. We need contributions. We need financial support. But we feel like we're making the right inroads. We're going to make an impact. And I think we're going to get the job done.
No, absolutely. I hope so. And listen, I wanted to ask one more question of Damon, just because you have the experience of fighting these battles in the legislature. In Kentucky, I know there's a heavy lift. I'm not trying to minimize any of the work that you guys did. Kentucky is the home of horse racing, and it's the horse capital of the world. So I feel like there had to at least be a more receptive ear in Kentucky than Florida and some of these other states, but maybe I'm wrong. Can you talk about like the challenge of doing it outside of Kentucky where there isn't necessarily a natural connection to the sport?
Yeah, that's a great question. Also, as a follow-up from before, we will be launching a website, thoroughbredracinginitiative.com, spelled out, thoroughbredracinginitiative.com. And people who wish to support our efforts can make a contribution on that website. Now, to your question, it does appear that it should have been easier than it was. It was not a slam dunk to pass this HHR bill, Joe. Once you get outside of Lexington, Louisville, and Northern Kentucky, the support for horse racing and breeding drops off in the more socially conservative parts of the state. So we have 31 Republicans in the Kentucky State Senate, only 7 Democrats. In order to get the bill passed, I had to reach out to the Democrat caucus in order to get the requisite number of votes to pass. And it was nip and tuck. At the end, out of those 31 Republicans, 15 of them voted yes. And then I needed 20 votes to pass it. And I got the 7 Democrats to support it, and we passed the bill with 22 votes. But it was nip and tuck, and it was very nerve-wracking. I've got the scars to show for
Right.
But one thing that I think is a good illustration, I had 2 senators from Eastern Kentucky who don't have a racetrack in or near their district and no breeding farms, but they saw what can happen to a signature industry when it goes down. And that would be the coal industry, which is incredibly important to Eastern Kentucky. And after the Obama administration cracked down on fossil fuels, we saw a tremendous decrease in coal mining jobs here in Kentucky. And those 2 guys came to me, and they were under absolutely rigorous pressure from preachers and churches back home to vote no. And they said, "Damon, we're not going to stand by and let another signature industry die on our watch." And we're voting yes. And it was Senator Philip Wheeler from Pike County. And unfortunately, the late Johnny Turner, he passed away last fall, from Harlan County. No racetracks, no breeding farms, but they voted yes because they did not want to see another signature industry die on their watch. And that got me to 15 Republicans. And I mean, you can do the math. I mean, those guys are heroes to me. And they really stepped up. And, sometimes it takes that. You look, I'm a very partisan guy. I was the Senate Majority Leader, led the way for my party for 12 years. I've engaged in a lot of bare knuckle brawls with the opposition. However, I'm friends with them all. And there are some times when you have to get bipartisan agreement, and that's what we did. And you also have to hope that you get people who are not only from the horse-centric regions of your state, but also people who may not be as affected by that, but are willing to take the big view about is what's right for your state. So, yes, people were more open to it, Joe, but it wasn't as easy as you thought. It was the hardest fight of my political life, I can tell you that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And Joe, the other thing is, and I'll just throw my 2 cents in. Part of the reason why we're doing this obviously is for the love of the industry, the love of the sport, and the importance that horse racing and breeding is to Florida, and that's a big part of it. Another part of it also is that First has done a lot of things with regard to getting themselves in a position where they are right now, and a lot of it has been to the detriment of the people who make a living at the racetrack, the owners, trainers especially, and their employees. And from a moral standpoint, the group also just didn't think it was right. We just didn't think it was the right thing for them to constantly take advantage of the horsemen in the situation that they're in right now, to the extent where basically the horsemen were held hostage to have to, get out of decoupling's way in order for them to be able to have workman's comp insurance, which is like a necessity in order to run any business. So it really, we saw it as an injustice. We saw it as it was an unfair fight. And I think that that's also part of the reason why so many people are coming aboard and wanting to be a part of this. So David, just to dovetail on what you were saying, also, we'll put it up on the screen. If people want to go to the website, it's thoroughbredracinginitiative.com. There's an email there, contact@thoroughbredracinginitiative.com, where they can get in touch with us. But you're right. The best way to get in touch with anybody on the board is to call them or reach out to them directly. We're all very accessible, and we're all very involved. We've only been doing this for 2 weeks now, but we've made huge headway as far as who else is involved, the amount of money that we're raising, the people, the profile that we're doing, and it's just the right cause. You know, I'm all about trying to do the right thing for the industry. And again, even though I'm not a Floridian, by address, I feel like I'm a Floridian by nature, just because this is the right fight. If you're going to pick a fight and a battle to stand up and say, this is what I want to throw my efforts into, this is the one.
Yeah, well, it's key, like, honestly, because horsemen's groups are kind of the only other outlet for this kind of organization, but horsemen have to work with management.
Right.
Like they have that push and pull with management, and it's great to have other parties from slightly outside of that close-knit relationship to put pressure on management. David, you have a family-run farm in Ocala, and it's one of the tops, I think, pound for pound, one of the top stallion farms in the country.
Absolutely.
Just talk to me about, the thing that people don't realize is that it's these kind of decisions and these kind of like vague threats to close racetracks. They don't just affect the here and the now. They affect people like you making breeding decisions, because the foals that you're breeding right now are not going to be on the racetrack until 2028. Talk about how this push by First Racing has kind of affected your business and the business of stallion and breeding farms.
Just the threat of the decoupling bill has put a halt to some commerce. The stallion sales have been slow. People are making decisions. There's other breeding programs elsewhere that are lucrative. And people that breed are long-term investors. It takes 3 years to make a racehorse soup to nuts. So, when you are under the threat that Gulfstream Park won't be in operation in 3 years or 4 years, or the possibility that they could close at any time, it creates a lot of uncertainty. So, it slows down commerce, and, it puts everybody in crisis mode. So, we're kind of dealing with that right now. I'm a third generation horseman. Next year will be the 70th year that Ocala Stud will be in business. And we're very proud of that. And not only are we proud of the horses that we've raised over the years, but more importantly, we've raised a lot of good people. We have a lot of employees that have been with us a really long time. We have 2 employees that have been with us for 50 years, about 6 of them that have been with us 30 years plus. and about 12 that are 20 years plus. And so we've raised a lot of families. This jeopardizes a lot of people's livelihoods, and it really, this bill, it really benefits one entity, a Canadian entity, and comes at the expense of an entire industry with a huge economic impact.
Yep. Like you said, like John said, the injustice of that really hits home. And I think a lot of people in Florida are rightfully asking, like, who's going to be our advocate? And I'm so glad that you guys are all stepping up to be their advocates. And hopefully we can reproduce these efforts across the country, because we need organization. And, Damon, with your experience in the legislature, I think it is super valuable. And David, with your skin in the game, couldn't think of more skin in the game than you have and Ocala Stud has. So thank you guys for doing this. Thank you for breaking the news on the show. And we'd love to have you back on to give us some updates.
Happy to do it anytime. And, to follow up on something David said, the horse breeding business is a marketplace.
Right.
Marketplaces hate uncertainty. And what First Racing Stronach Group has done here is introduce uncertainty into a marketplace. And to follow up on what David said, are we really going to let a Canadian company hold an American industry hostage? 33,500 jobs, $3.2 billion economic impact. Is that, I don't think that really goes along with what America is about these days. And so I'm in for the fight. When I retired from the legislature, I put my sword away, but I promised I would keep it sharp. And it turns out I'm being called back into battle, and I'm ready to unsheath my sword. I can tell you that right now, to help save this Florida racing industry.
We need it. We need
Absolutely.
it. Thank you, guys. Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance, including property and casualty, employee benefits, and unique specialty insurance. Chris Moore, our dude, heads Epic's equine specialty practice. You can see him at the sales, at the races, all around. Breeding season is here. Foals are dropping. You're starting to make those breeding decisions. Call Chris up. He can protect your investments better than anybody else in the business. He can customize the plan just for you to meet your needs and your risk tolerance. Give Chris a call or shoot him a text at 317-650-4519. And that brings us to this week's
Epic Performance of the Week.
I love that guy. He's got the best deep voice ever. He lives in my head.
Is he in the ceiling? So this week's Epic Performance of the Week, we went back and forth a little bit over the group text on Saturday, and I was like, let's just see what happens at Fairgrounds. And lo and behold, we had a dominant performance at Fairgrounds by Magnitude, which you're watching right now. Now, unfortunately, Magnitude came out of this race with an ankle chip, so he's going to be off the Derby trail. I feel like he would have been one of if not the top pick of our supplemental draft for the Derby contest. But regardless, this was an incredible performance. He got a 108 buyer, absolutely crushed the field in the Risen Star, which was a loaded looking field. Another son of Not This Time. Shout out to TaylorMade and the homies at TaylorMade. Not This Time, obviously, like it's not shocking. He's gotten to that point where it's like, He's like into Mischief or Tappet, where you see a horse cruising, or Gun Runner, you see a horse cruising and you look up and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's Not This Time.
Yep.
So yeah, the Magnitude was absolutely incredible on Saturday. He was a workmate of West Point's Yinzer, who also won earlier in the day. So Steve Asmussen also had Hall of Fame win in the Mine Shaft earlier in the day. Big day for the Asmussen barn. But yeah, it doesn't get much more epic than this run from Magnitude.
And at 43-1, Joe, he was
Right,
43-1. I mean, it was that's the crazy part about it. Not only did he win by almost 10 lengths and get away on the lead and put East Avenue away and built away in the rest of the field, but at 43-1, none of us saw that one coming.
Mm-hmm. Rail Talk is sponsored by The Green Group. The Green Group, the number one accounting firm in the horse business. There's one reason they're number one. No other CPA firm knows the industry like they do, specifically Len Green, the patriarch of The Green Group, who we love and appreciate and can't wait to see down in Ocala. Here's a special offer for listeners of Rail Talk. Len is offering a complimentary, confidential half-hour consultation, guaranteeing you'll get value. Call him up at, what's that number, Miguel?
73263.
Gracias, Miguel Agresta. Or go to greenco.com. I mean, tax day is around the corner. Get involved. Get situated right now from the Green Group. You don't have to take it from me, though. Listen to this other satisfied customer, Becky Thomas of Sequel.
Choosing the Green Group was all about that Mr. Green was so invested in the industry. He was a horse person. He understood clearly what we went through, the ups and downs of the industry, as well as, how hard it was to be able to make a living in it and how to capitalize on the tax advantages. So he's been great because our industry has constantly changing tax laws, and Lynn is just right there front and center to make sure that we try to do the very best we can.
Thank you, Becky. Take advantage of this offer. It's exclusive for Rail Talk listeners. Confidential half-hour consultation. Len's time is very valuable, so we do not offer this on a whim. We know he'll help you out. We know plenty of people from the Rail Talk family have already taken advantage of this offer. Don't get left behind. Call him up at 732-634-5100 or visit greenco.com. So this story broke last Tuesday, a little bit after we recorded last week's episode. Equibase is looking at a rating system for horse racing, specifically for lower level races that could provide an alternative for claiming races. I'm quoting from the Blood Horse story here, with an eye towards simplifying some current race conditions while providing new race options to fit a track's horse population. Equibase is moving toward creating a rating system similar to those used overseas. Project leaders believe a successful effort could provide a tool that would allow increased starts from horses in training. The project leader, Chance Moquette, has a quote in here. It says, you hear about horses who have run out of places to run. Maybe it's a filly who's out of conditions, but because she's worth six figures as a broodmare, the connections don't want to run her in a $50,000 claiming race. Equibase, just getting started on this project, wants to hear from all corners of the industry, so make your voice heard. It's got currently 4 working committees of 5 to 10 members to speak for varying interests, trying to have a system in place for a test run later this year. So this is something that's going to be rolled out relatively quickly if they can get some consensus from the industry. To me, this is a great idea. Like, this is it. The problem of not being able to find races for your horses and find their level is increasing as field size shrinks, as foal crop shrinks, and just having like some stratified rating system so you know where you fit and you don't necessarily have to risk losing your horse for a tag if you don't want to, I think is absolutely crucial. And I just, it ties back to horse welfare too. Just because you look at the data, and a lot of time, and it says this in the story that there's somewhat of a correlation between horses who change hands a lot and having catastrophic injuries, having breakdowns. Now, first of all, I just think in general, like, I feel bad for horses who are constantly moving in and out of different barns. Like, it just has to be very, very stressful for them on top of the stress that's already induced by living at the racetrack and training pretty much all year round. And it makes sense that it makes sense intuitively that not every barn is going to know the intricacies of every single horse. Right. So that, I think, puts them at greater risk if they're constantly changing hands. I think this makes a lot of sense. Anything that can increase field size, I'm pretty much all for it. And it works overseas. Like, it works because you know where your horses fit. You don't have to scour the condition book. You don't have to have a freaking law degree to read the conditions of some of these races. John, I'm curious, your thoughts as an owner. You guys mostly have higher level horses, right? But I'm sure there are times where you're looking for spots for your horses, and it's just they don't show up easily.
Well, and I think there's two things at hand here, Joe. Number one is, you mentioned the lower level claiming races. And for the first 30 years of existence, that's what we did. We were a claiming outfit. So I'm very in tune with horses changing hands and trying to have to figure out, what medications work, which ones don't, what they're allergic to, what they like to, eat. Do they need a goat? Do they need, special equipment? All those things. Now, some of that has been identified and cataloged in the form of the HISA website. So you can now go through and see, what medications horses are on, when they were injected, and where. So that kind of defeats that argument a little bit. The other part of the argument, though, I don't agree with, and that is, the higher classed horses that maybe you have a filly that you don't want to lose in a claiming race, but is out of conditions. I think racetracks have done a pretty good job of adding additional features to races. For example, there'll be like a 2 other than, or a horse that hasn't won in 6 months. So there are other options with regard to that. And one of the things that Aaron Yagoda, who races in New York primarily, and I were talking the other day. And one of the things that would actually alleviate this problem without trying to incorporate an entirely new system to our game is you make a claiming race a $500,000 claiming race, or you make it $1 million claiming race. Nobody's going to claim a horse at that level, but it keeps all their allowance conditions available. And, what if you have a well-bred filly and you don't want to go through a sale, or you don't want to go through, a digital platform or anything like that? You run it for $500,000. I mean, that would be an incredible opportunity. You don't lose a condition if the horse wins. And you have like-kind horses that are running against each other without having to incorporate an entirely new system, which you mentioned you need a law degree to read condition books anyway. I don't know if this would simplify it or if this would make it more difficult with adopting a new system from Europe. I'm all for things that will help the industry. I just don't know if this is going to necessarily address some of the issues that they're throwing up there. I think there might be easier ways to address those issues.
I mean, I think this simplifies it plenty. Like, you have a rating system. If your rating is between 70 and 79, you fit in this race. It's 80 and 89, you
right.
fit in this race, and you wouldn't lose conditions here either. Like, you wouldn't. That's the problem to me. It's not just claimers. Like, if you have an allowance horse we have a bunch of these in the barn at West Point right now, and we're not alone. Like, you have a horse that's not quite graded stakes quality, but isn't a claimer, and they've won 3 allowance races. Like, you're shit out of luck. There's really nowhere for you to go.
Right.
This is the idea that this would have a home for those kind of horses as well. Mm-hmm. And the argument to me against it, such as it is like, who's making the determination?
Yeah.
That's definitely something that needs to be fleshed out. But I think in general, like, this is anything to simplify the condition book. Like, this would simplify it and just make it based on your rating, how fast the horse is, what kind of form that they're in. I honestly don't see any downside to at least trying it and seeing if it has a positive effect on field size. It is time for the update of our Mage Rage Derby contest. Leaderboard had some action over the weekend. Mage Rage is, of course, presented by our friends at Airdrie Stud and the Great Mage, winner of the 149th Kentucky Derby. Son of Good Magic, obviously a terrific female family, which had an update over the weekend. Last week, yet another winner out of Puka. We had Baeza, who is a son of Into Mischief, win very impressively at Santa Anita by 4 3/4 lengths. Kicked away from the field. Looks like he's trained by John Sheriffs. Looks like one of these John Sheriffs horses that's going to get better as the distances get longer and as he matures. I was looking this up. Like, she's had 4 foals so far, and we got Baeza, who has pretty much the sky's the limit, and obviously Mage, and then obviously Dornock, winner of the Grade 1 Belmont and the Haskell. And then the runt of the bunch is a filly named Gunning, who is a multiple stakes placed filly by Gunrunner, who is also probably worth several $1 million. So talk about blue hand mares. This is only 4 foals, all 4 massive, massive potential, none more so than Mage. Go check out airdriestud.com. He's at the top. He's at the banner, as he should be, to have the 149th Derby winner as an honor. And as we saw last week, John has some pictures and some connections to the first little Mage babies out there, and I just can't wait to see them on the track. So let's get to the leaderboard. 2 changes over the weekend. I see John rubbing his hands.
Say it slow.
Go ahead.
Joe, say it slowly. Say it slowly. Where am I?
You want to rub your nipples?
Well, I am. I'm just only my left one for good luck, and only counterclockwise. It's an OCD
So
thing.
John, our friend John, has moved into first place.
Yeah.
From last pick to first place, a true riches to riches story. Riches to more riches. With his boy Built running third in the Risen Star. Never mind that he was beaten like 20 lengths. We'll still call it a third place finish.
That's right. Don't call it a comeback.
John gets 1.5 points, divide the 15 points divided by 10. John is now in first place. with 2.7. And then the other action from the weekend, we confirmed that this is a real horse, Take Charge Tom, who ran in the Sunland Derby and picked up 4 points for our buddy Dan, who is thumping his chest about it on Twitter. He ran fourth, right, in the Sunland Derby?
He ran fourth. He ran fourth. I love that Dan picked the horse because somebody told him to. And then after the show was over, the guy was like, wait, no, I told you not to pick the horse. But yeah, he can still pump his chest. He can still pump his chest all he wants because the horse ran fourth in a Derby point race.
Yeah, so I mean, hey, however you get those points,
right.
This is a very fiercely competitive contest. So shout out to Dan, who is now tied for second with Michelle at 2.4 points apiece. Sam is in fourth at 2.0, and lonely old Joe is down at the bottom with 1.0 points. But the big horse in the stable, my first pick, is coming up this Saturday in the Rebel. Sandman in a 14-horse field in the Rebel. Lots of action. Dan's got Speed King as well as a couple other horses in there that I think we have some representation for.
There's 4 or 5 horses that are represented in that one race, Joe.
Not to put any more weight on Sandman than there already is, but come on, buddy. I need some points in this contest.
Yes, it's very important that you get points going into March, going into the first turn, as it were, of the Derby preps at this point. But Joe, you know what? Don't feel bad. Like, I was in the basement for all of 2 seconds. You have a chance. There's always a chance.
John never leaves the basement, honestly.
That's true. That's true. Michelle locks the door to make sure that that's the case.
She just throws food down. Or it's like raw meat and then disappears for another day. Yeah, so big weekend. Oaklawn, the Rebel. After that is the Fountain of Youth. This stuff is going to heat up. I think we're about 75 days away or so from the first Saturday in May. So, good luck to the rest of my competitors, but not too much luck. Your boy needs some help. Rail Talk is sponsored by Facing Tipton. The next Facing Tipton digital sale is right around the corner. Starts this Thursday, February 20th, and runs through the following Tuesday, February 25th, the February digital sale. You can check out the catalog at digital.facingtipton.com. Soon after that, the March digital sale, March 13th through the 18th. So that'll be right after the 2-year-old sales. So that's a great part on the calendar to find some horses, turnkey horses that can be running some big races for you in the spring. April digital sale coincides right with the start of the Keeneland meet, April 3rd through April 8th. The May digital sale, May 8th through the 13th, and that'll set the table nicely for the Mid-Atlantic 2-year-olds in training sale, May 19th and 20th down in Timonium, Maryland. The Undertax show runs May 13th through the 15th, so we're excited to see those babies down there in Timonium running over a dirt track. I think that's key. When you have 2-year-olds, you want to see if they're going to be able to handle dirt racing. Very, very key to have them race rather than breeze an eighth of a mile or a quarter of a mile over the dirt track. So exciting time for Facing. Do not get shut out on those digital sales. I see more and more horses popping up all the time in the past performances who were just purchased at a digital sale a week or two earlier, and then they're running in the new colors and able to earn money for their new connections. It is the future and the present. Check it out at digital.facingtipton.com. Sounds like John wants to
and Joe, this just in. I literally just got this text. For those of you who know 880 Wins News up here in New York. This is from Boyd Browning. Responding to the market demand, Fasig Tipton February digital sale will include the company's first online sale of 2-year-olds in training with 16 juveniles represented with Gallup videos. There will be no timed works, but they are basically recognizing 2 things here, Joe. Number one is that people want to buy 2-year-olds and they want to do it on a digital platform, number one. And number two is you don't have to breeze 9 and 3 to be a good horse. I mean, we have a great example. I can't remember his name. Oh yeah, it's Sandman. That galloped at a 2-year-old in training sale. And basically Fasig Tipton is saying, hey, we recognize that that's what the market wants. The market wants 2-year-olds. They want to see them on the racetrack, but we don't have to breeze them in order for them to be in their best light. We are going to gallop 16 2-year-olds and offer them up in the upcoming digital sale. That is revolutionary and tip of the cap to Fasig Tipton for, again, breaking a glass ceiling with this option.
Wow, that's huge. We're breaking news left and right on this show.
It's all, I hope we don't have to fix it.
Where's our freaking Pulitzer Prize? It's coming.
It's coming. That Eclipse Award is coming, Joe. You and I both have them. I think we both have spaces on our bookshelves to be able to do it.
Yes, we don't have one together yet.
That's true. Oh, that would be swell. Do you want the
But yeah, that's huge news. That's huge news. Check out that catalog because well, it'd be interesting to see how those horses sell. And yeah, why not? If they're just galloping, let's get some action on these horses.
Wow, Joe, we talked a lot about things that are changing in the industry. A lot of them, people pulling together and trying to get things done and recognizing where there's inefficiencies in the business. And I just want to mention also that a lot of the stallion farms get a bad rap because people see them as big money and they don't care about the end user or the customer. But both TaylorMade and Spendthrift went ahead and lowered stud fees on their what I would call their middle tier stallions to make them more palatable, more approachable, and more affordable for the stallions. And then Spendthrift also went one step further. And again, they're not a sponsor on the show, so there's no reason for us to hype anything out of the ordinary that they do. But I thought this was a really extraordinary offer. They have something called the Safe Bet program, and basically what that means is that they have 4 stallions that are participating in that group. Basin, By My Standards, Known Agenda, and Rock Your World, all standing for about $5,000 this year. And what they're offering to the breeders is that if you breed to any of those stallions this year in 2025, and that stallion doesn't have at least one graded or group stakes winner by the calendar year end from this crop of 2-year-olds, you're not going to owe a stud fee. So basically, it's like, okay, if the horse turns out not to have any good juveniles, and the risk is minimal because you're just saving $5,000 by not paying the stud fee. If, however, those horses, if the horse that you represent has a grade 1 or has a 1 graded or group stakes winner by the end of the year, then you'd owe the money. But you know what? It would mean that the horse is actually showing that it has a propensity to throw black type winners. So it's kind of a win-win situation. And there aren't that many win-win opportunities in the breeding game. So tip of the hat to Spendthrift and their unique program called Safe Bet program. I really think it's entrepreneurial, and I just wanted to mention it because I think that it's exactly the kind of creativity that is needed in our business.
And that was B. Wayne Hughes's hallmark.
Yeah.
Was ways to market the stallions and coming up with new interesting programs. And it's great to see that everybody at Spendthrift is carrying on that legacy.
Absolutely. And we have a Rock Your World that actually Lauren Carlisle picked out for us, and we named it in her honor. It's called Bring Bail Money. So there's an Ontario bred Rock Your World that we own. Bring bail money for those of you that have, stable watches, and virtual stables. Yes, bring bail money. It's a Rock Your World, and you can put down that it was a Lauren Carlisle selection. So that way, when it does win and she advertises on the show, everyone will understand it comes full circle. But yes, that horse was named in her honor.
Shout out to Lauren. Those were not my words. Those were John's words. Don't come from me. Shout out to Lauren and Black Dog Bloodstock, one of our many beloved sponsors. She does a great job. Also, one thing I wanted to mention before we wrap, there's a donation drive for fire relief in California at Santa Anita set for February 23rd, which is this coming Sunday. Angelino's in Action in partnership with Santa Anita is staging a donation drive to aid in fire relief efforts at the racetrack. Those who choose to donate will be treated to a complimentary day at the races, free admission, free parking, free program. Donations will be accepted between the hours of 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. in the Santa Anita parking lot. You can access that via Gate 5 off Huntington Drive or Gate 8 off of Baldwin Avenue. Non-perishable food, water, paper products, toiletries, and diapers will be accepted. So if you're in the area, thankfully the fires are contained now, but there's still a lot of people who need a lot of help rebuilding. So if you're in the area, you're going to be at Santa Anita, go please donate and help out with that cause, because it's super worthy. That's this Sunday from 10:30 to 2:30. Okay, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of Rail Talk episode 80. We are knocking 100's door down, John.
Absolutely.
Coming up faster than you think. I want to shout out David O'Farrell and Damon Thayer for coming by and telling us about their Thoroughbred Racing Initiative. Can't wait to see the fruits of that labor in the near future. Thanks to my co-pilot, John Green, our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producers, Julia Gresta and Nathan Wilkinson, for all their hard work, especially this week. We'll see you next week back here on Rail Talk.